Welcome to Spirit School. My name is Danielle, also known as the Squamish Medium. I am the host of your Spirit School, where I will share all the lessons and learnings that I have uncovered through my intuitive development and mediumship development journey. I am a professional psychic and medium, an intuitive teacher and mentor, and I look forward to walking alongside you on this journey.
Hey, Danielle, how you doing today?
Good. How are you, Tina?
I'm good. It's pretty funny that we finally hit record because I think we've been hanging out for about 30 minutes.
I know. That's where all the combo really happens, right? How are you? I miss you. I haven't talked to you for so long, and I do honestly miss you.
Oh my gosh, girl, I miss your energy so much. But you know what? I get to see you, and I love you're out there doing Instagram, your jam, and I love checking out your stories and your lives, and you're doing amazing. I could see you glowing through the screen. I know the listeners can't see that, but I know they
Yeah.
can see your beautiful face on Instagram and all your social feed.
Thank you. Yeah, I love Instagram. I have a coach for social media stuff because I can't figure Facebook out for the life of me. And she helps me with like kind of the Facebook aspect. But I'm like, I don't know, just Instagram. I just feel totally myself in that space. I have like 2,000 people who kind of engage with me at this point of the journey, and they just make me feel so safe about expressing my opinions and expressing my spiritual philosophies and even kind of getting into more of my personal life. I shared very recently that my cat got really sick, and I get tons of DMs now, people asking about Bender. And it just kind of makes me feel like this like safe kind of friend container. That's kind of like, I just love Instagram. It's so much fun.
Well, congratulations on your 2,000 followers. That's a big milestone. I love that. And I know it's
My
always,
meme around that,
I saw your meme around that. I love your meme. What is it? Meme Monday, right?
virtual meme roundup
Virtual.
Monday.
Love it. But I don't think I've ever shared this with you, but you were my big inspiration to go towards Instagram. I was doing very, very little on Instagram prior to us meeting. And then I was so comfortable on Facebook. I had been on Facebook. I had a Facebook group since 2014, doing Live at Five, probably since then. And Instagram was scary. And you've been my inspiration because you made it seem easy and fun and connected. And I love all your stories. And so yeah, so I feel a little bit more and more comfortable with it. So I probably never told you that. So thank you.
Oh, no, I love that. And the thing, I grew my account very slowly, like over 3 years. It took me to even get my first 2,000, but I did it in a very purposeful way, like a very intentional way. I had opportunities to grow it faster, but I was like, no, I just want to attract the right people to my account. And I think that that's been a really cool way to kind of build my confidence in sharing my voice and sharing my spiritual philosophies, which are not always popular, and kind of getting the people around me who are like, thank you, like that's very refreshing perspective. And just having the few people at the beginning reach out to me and tell me that they're resonating with what I was saying helped me kind of like build my confidence slowly as the people were coming. So with Facebook, it's funny, like even just taking spiritual meme roundup Mondays on Instagram, I mean, they're a hit, right? Like people just say, I know what day of the week it is, thanks to your memes. They're just kind of like lighthearted. But if I share it to Facebook, it's crickets, like zero engagement, zero likes. I'm just like, okay, is the audience that different between the two platforms? So I'm kind of like having fun experimenting with it all and just kind of like feeling into it. But Instagram's always felt like a little bit at home for me.
Yeah. And you know what? It's as you were speaking, I think that it is very different. And I think that when you get to know your audience and you get to know your people and where they hang out, that's where you want to be. Like I remember years ago being on Twitter, being on Instagram a little bit, and being on Facebook. And Twitter never resonated with me, but I was pushing it out here and there, like, okay, I think I should tweet this. I don't know what a tweet is. And then LinkedIn, I know I want to do. I do have a small presence, but that again is another thing. But I
Mm-hmm.
started realizing, I think like you, is where are my people hanging out? And then there was, and I'm older than you. so
Hardly.
I, well, I am. And so I noticed that there were people, women, because that's my ideal client. There were women hanging on Instagram that were never on Facebook. And I was like, wait a minute. I just assumed if you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram. Well, that's not true. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been interesting to me because I'll put something up or I'll announce something and I'll get a DM on Instagram and I'm not getting that same DM on Facebook. So it's really, it's kind of cool. But I think it's the energy and the synergy of knowing our listeners, like a podcast, because we're podcasters, right? So knowing the listeners and knowing our community. And then there's always the tweaking. I think what you do great, what I love about is getting involved with your community, asking the questions, probing the questions. Even yesterday, I saw you were asking that we're doing this interview. So what questions do you want to ask? And I did the same thing on Instagram, but not on Facebook. So yeah, I just love your approach. And one more thing, I could say a lot about this, but one of the things you say, and I think I've said all the time, is you got to do it scared. If I would not be doing what I'm doing, I would not be podcasting for 5 years if I didn't wait, because it's like my other one is do it scared, and done is better than perfect.
Mhm, mhm. Absolutely. And, I've been kind of guided from spirit towards coaching people through fear. That's kind of my jam lately because my journey. We've known each other a while. I've overcome a lot of fear in the past 2 years, not even just starting the podcast and really kind of exercising my voice, and kind of showing up for spirit and sharing the philosophies, which again are a little bit more cutting edge, not necessarily what the people who mentored me are saying. And so I've always had like a lot of fear around that. And then, of course, leaving corporate and pursuing my dream and my passions full time with kids, with the mortgage, like really doing it scared and kind of healing the limiting beliefs and healing the pieces of myself and the past versions of myself that just never felt worthy of living a big life and never felt like worthy of being abundant in doing what I love and what I feel actually drawn to. So, in saying that, I did work in corporate and I worked with motorsports teams all my adult life. And I have been feeling the calling to hit up LinkedIn because I think I have a lot to offer, even like the corporate world when it comes to, you can still be in corporate and follow your dreams. You can do both and you can have it all. And I don't think our purpose is necessarily tied to how we make our living, right? I truly think our purpose is to experience joy, remember joy, kind of heal, get over our stuff, like live an expansive, loving, joyful experience. And so it's funny you bring up LinkedIn because all week I've been like, oh, I have a LinkedIn profile and I just need to kind of get out there and kind of share my philosophies because I can actually see myself sitting in a boardroom with people saying, I think you're projecting because you're scared. And I feel like a lot of the unhealthy relationships that I saw in corporate were because of a wounded child aspect and these like worthiness issues and trying to make yourself bigger and then creating a little bit of chaos and conflict all around you. So there's a lot of healing to be done in that corporate world too. So I have been feeling like a little bit called to go towards LinkedIn for that.
Well, there was your message right there. So that message came in clearly, right? I brought up LinkedIn and you're like, I've been thinking of that. So
I have all week. And my old CEO actually reached out to me on LinkedIn this week to ask me to be part of a project that he's working on. And I'm like, I need to get on LinkedIn. I'm like, look at these opportunities I could have that are, outside of what I kind of do now. And I love new things. That's getting over the fear and doing it anyways. It's just like, I don't know this very well, but I kind of want to get into it because it's obviously something that's in my awareness now. So let's do it. Let's figure it out. Right.
it kind of segues into a question as you're talking. I want to say, because due to COVID and the pandemic, I think that the lines are blurry now. And I think this is a good thing between the corporate world and the entrepreneurial world. If anything, it's broken down the barriers that a lot of people were wasting time
Mm-hmm.
commuting or whatever. And now a lot of the jobs can be done at home. And so
All
therefore,
the jobs can be done at home pretty
exactly,
much.
almost all of them, like unless you're a nurse and you need to go to the doctor, a few things, but yes, majority, and absolutely, you're absolutely right, can be done at home. So what happens to that paradigm? Oh, what about all that office space? What
Mhm.
about those hours punching in? What about this? What about that? And so I have seen a huge shift. And I went from entrepreneurial contractor many years to big corporation, although this big corporation is what I do. So that's like a really interesting thing. They had to actually make a title for me, which is so cool. And I'm very proud of that because I didn't go to corporate and leave everything I'm doing. They have accepted me as a medium and an intuitive and a Reiki master and a Reiki teacher and yoga teacher. And to get paid that I've been doing this kind of piecemealing it all together. But I segued a little. I've seen that we are now in this shift in paradigm that the corporations aren't going to look the same, and they're going to need Danielle Serenk, right? They're going to need her, because you need to break down those barriers of fear, because it doesn't look the same now.
It
That's it.
doesn't, and you're not going to get all these people back to their desks. This was the hard thing. Like, I was working in a corporation, in an organization that I felt incredibly tied to their purpose and their mission statement. They helped heal years of in trauma in Indigenous people, which reflected in health outcomes. And I worked at a community level, so I was very passionate about the work done there. But I'm like, sitting there at a desk all day, and I have all these passions outside of this. And I was like, I'm 11 hours door to door here. I'm like, I have no time or energy for anything else. And I don't feel like you're going to successfully get all these people back to their desks for 8 hours a day. And I think that what it comes down to is trust. People before this did not trust their employees. And I had an experience too when I was in human resources. I was the only working mom of like 40 people. And our VP at the time said, I call bullshit on working moms actually getting work done at home. I'm like, excuse me? I'm like, we work harder because we have to prove ourselves against stereotypes and mindsets like that. That's why we're working twice as hard as people who don't have kids at home. We have mouths to feed. Like, I was so upset, and it really, really showed me the lack of trust in the corporate world with one another and with employees. So now there was no choice but to lean into trust. And I've even seen a lot of control happen for people who are working at home. You need to do a presentation every day. Like, you need to, you know what I mean? And I think that's really what it boils down to, is trust.
Yeah, I love
How do
that.
you heal the trust within this like mindset that's kind of been, since the Industrial Revolution really is when we first started kind of getting into desks and the men and like punching in. And it's like, how do we heal those old wounds and then kind of like reestablish trust with one another? Like, I want to be here, but I don't want to be here if you don't trust me.
Yep. I also think that we talked it about before about time, but it's also about letting go of the hustle. Letting go of the hustle. I don't like that word, the hustle. I like the hustle, the song. That's a long time ago. But
I don't know.
you don't know that one? Oh, see, I am so much older than you.
No, I
Um,
listen to instrumental music or Tupac. I'm like,
okay, okay. No,
born
I
me.
mean hustle was in the 60s, but I actually did dance it and I still like to. So I'm hearing it now in my head now, but I will not sing it because I'm not a good singer. Um, that's it. Like spirit, my spirit guide's like do 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 do
I know
do
the
do.
song you're talking
Okay,
about
that's it.
now.
All right. Thank you guys. But what I was going with is I don't like that word, the hustle. And can you work smarter, not harder? And I think that's another, it's been happening, but like now it's like we're here, we're in it.
We are absolutely in it. We are absolutely in it. Can you imagine, like, even just like the environmental carbon imprint if we didn't have to send everybody to these office towers every day, right? I mean, there's so many benefits to leaning into trust, to kind of like healing these old wounds and getting people into this mindset of like, just do your work. And I've had two bosses in my life that basically said, Danielle, I know your mom, you do what you need to do, leave early, come late. I just want the work to be done. So I've actually experienced a lot of trust in the corporate world, and I've actually seen how that made me a more loyal, a more present employee, because I could condense what they expect me to get done in 8 hours into 2 or 3 and like really kind of like push it out. And luckily that's what the metrics were based off of when it came to like performance reviews and stuff like that. So I've seen the really good side of corporate, as well as, the not so good side, the interdisciplinary kind of personalities that come up, and again, the projecting from our internal wounds. And so I think like people like us need to be at some level in these systems so that we can kind of like ignite change. And so that's how come like I left corporate, and I'm so happy I did. And my life is complete magic. Like, I feel like I'm a unicorn on a rainbow every day. I'm just like, oh my God, I don't have to do anything today. And I'm still like getting bookings and I'm still like have business coming in. I'm like, how? Like, how does this work? And so I'm really into right now the entrepreneurial spirit and like energy in business. And I'm like just so thirsty for more knowledge with this. But I do feel the calling to come in as a voice of a survivor of the corporate world, to kind of like bring some sort of inspiration. Like, you don't have to do it like this. Like, things can be done differently and things won't fall apart. Right.
So good. So good. And I love that. And I know your entrepreneurial journey has been, a hard one coming, but now that you're in it, it's just been amazing. And I could see like the unicorns and rainbows. I love that. But one of the things that's coming to mind as you're speaking is, you know, uh, allowing yourself to, let's talk a little bit about that. Like how, but people ask this to me all the time. So I'm just going to ask it to you and I don't have the answer. So
Mhm.
people will say, well, what's the favorite thing that you do? Because I do wear a lot. And so we're like, oh, you wear so many hats. You got narrowed down to one. And that's always been the thing. Any business coach I've had, what's one thing you do? And I'm like, no, I just don't do one thing. I don't do one thing. Do an umbrella under it. And maybe I do too much for other people, but for me, it works. But if I asked you, like, what is the one thing that you do, teaching, readings, like whatever, that if you had to pick one, what's your favorite? Or can you?
Mhm.
Is it like a baby?
Mentoring, it's teaching. I told my therapist last week, I said, I set this intention out and it took fruition within the next day because I'd never said this before. And I got to tell you, it was a phenomenal experience for me where I told her, I said, I'm a good medium. I'm a great teacher. And I want to be the teacher that people travel to come and learn from. I don't want to be famous. I don't care if I have the swipe up, like, because I make very good income with only 2,000 followers and all my business comes from Instagram. I don't think that these vanity metrics have any sway on our value as teachers or light workers or spirit workers. I've let go of the vanity metrics completely because they just are another barrier that we have to kind of like work through. But I love teaching. Nothing lights me up more than sitting with someone who is divinely connected and helping them work through the not enoughness. And because I've experienced it all myself, I'm able to walk people through it. And most people who leave my mentorship programs have paying clients at the end. They go from being so scared in the closet to having a spiritual practice, whether it's on the side, full time, whatever their heart desires. I don't push people either way. I actually am a big advocate. You can do both. You can 100% do both. But there will come a point in time where you are all of a sudden on this path of joy and you just want more of it. So it's like you have to decide how you want to live your life. And because, I'm an end of life doula as well, and I work with mortality, not just through mediumship and my end of life doula work, but I always know that when we get to the end, it's us and our thoughts, it's our memories, it's how we've lived our life that really we sit with at the end. And so you really have to choose how you want to live your life. And that's what you're going to carry with you at the end into the afterworld, right?
Yeah.
So I love walking people through their fears and their limiting beliefs and letting them live the most expansive life ever. And that is done through mentoring, not readings.
Yeah. You know what? That's where we really align because I'm in my flow, I guess, the most is teaching. And so my
Mhm.
teaching has a few different levels. So I teach Reiki and, I teach the different Reiki levels. When I'm teaching Reiki or I'm mentoring my intuitive coaching students, or I do like mentorship. So I do different types of mentorship, but we'll just call it all teaching. That's what lights me up. And I see, and you'll always know, and I'm sure you have the same thing. I have a woman that comes in and maybe she'll do a reading and then she'll do the 4-week coaching course and then she'll do the 90-day mentorship course and, blah, blah, so when you see recurring, when people want to come back, that they're learning more and you can see the transformation. I have a couple people in my mind that I have from where they started to where they are. It's been amazing. And it's not just that they've learned particular things, just their inner knowing, their inner journey. That's what it is. It's not about learning new things. It's like learning them about themselves because the
Yeah.
journey is themselves. And especially when I teach Reiki 1, which I love teaching, it's all about yourself. It's self-care, self-Reiki. And so that I see that it's the lights open up, the eyes open up, and they go through energy of running their own energy and taking care of themselves. And so I think that's where you and I really connect, because that's what lights me up as well. I love doing readings. It lights me up. I love teaching yoga, different energy, but I love teaching and I love
Mhm.
mentoring, because that truly is, I feel like that's my life calling. It's my dharma. And so that's what I want to do more of. Yeah.
100%. I know one day we'll do a retreat together because you're a retreat
Yes.
queen. I've never done one, but
Yes.
I'm like, we'll
Yes.
have
And
to get together.
my sister and I had to obviously cancel the last one. So fingers crossed for 2021. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely have to do something together with that. But I agree. And, it's like when you're in spirit, like you're inspired, it's like you can't even contain the energy. Like, and I chase that feeling. It's a bit of a selfish thing too, because I receive healing when I'm in that space. When I'm helping someone else, my heart can't even like contain within this body, and I get covered in shivers. My crown just, it's like this multi-sensory experience that I get. That I'm like, more of that, please. How do I get more of that? So when I teach, it's also very rewarding for me as a human who's healing. And more often than not, the people that are aligned to work with us, we've walked recently through what they're experiencing. That's the only way we can teach it, or why they would be aligned to work with us. And so, spirit being so intelligent, they'll always heal two people at once if they can. So I feel truly like I'm receiving healing as I'm doing this work on behalf of spirit as well.
Oh, absolutely. I always say that in any of the areas that I teach, is that I may be sitting on this side of the room or this side of the computer, but I'm just the facilitator and I'm learning just as much as you. I'm not in a higher box. I'm not on a pedestal. Don't put me on one. I always say, right, if you meet any spiritual teacher and they say their way is the way, run the other way. We know that. So, yeah, definitely.
So let me ask you something then, because this is one of the most common things that I receive from people, because I'm, my title is Squamish Medium. I'm Squamish, but almost like 99% of my business is international now, like because of the podcast and stuff. So I have people like fight me hand tooth and nail for the in-person versus like online. So with like your teaching and mentoring, because almost all my mentoring is done online and always has been, because it's more local people that just kind of like want the readings, right? So what do you say about like the energy difference between doing something in person, even Reiki teaching, versus in person versus online?
Yeah. So I do both. Obviously, with COVID, that's been all online, but I've been teaching Reiki online for a few years. It's been a one-on-one mentorship. So it's been like a 90-day mentorship. And I've had clients in San Francisco, kind of all over. Energy is energy. And
Mhm.
so I like both. I can't say that I only like this or only like that. There is something about putting a classroom together and, having all their manuals, like little teacher. I like to put them all out and have little snacks. I'm big snacks. I'm Italian, so everybody has to have food. And it's true. I'm always like, what are we having for snack?
I'm like Miss
And
Potluck over here.
and have the whiteboard and the magic markers and all that stuff. So I like that. I like having it all nice and pretty and physically having the space. But I also love doing it online, and I feel that the energy is just as good. So some people will say, "Oh, well, this will be the other thing I get. I want to do a reading with you in person. I don't want to do it on. I don't think it's going to work." And I'm like, "No, it's going to work just as good." Matter of fact, sometimes I feel like the readings, especially the readings, are even better because there's
Mhm.
no like, I can maybe see the body language. I don't look at the person anyway. And it's different, it just feels different. And I feel that people are coming to that more and more. So yeah, I would say that I like both, but it's, for me, it's just as powerful and it's just as good. I think it's a perception thing. I think it's for people, and it's a perception thing. Just like people prior to March, whatever date, March 15th, nobody knew what Zoom was. Now everybody knows what Zoom is. So, that's it too. So I think once we change the perception and break down the barriers, people will be able to accept it more. Now, I will say I had my very first group Reiki 2 virtually. So I've never done a group
Mhm.
virtual Reiki 2. And it could be anyone can join. Now they have had to do Reiki 1 to do Reiki 2, right? The reason I'm doing Reiki 2 first, I got a lot of those questions, is because I was supposed to do a Reiki 2 in April. It had to be obviously moved. So I said, let me do Reiki too. And then for the people that missed it, and if they're open to virtually. Now, I had about only 8 people in that class. It was a small class. Not all are going to do it virtually because they're not comfortable, but I have so many more people around the world that are asking that fits into their schedule. So I'll let you know, but I've been doing it one-on-one. It's going to be great. I figured out breakout rooms. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to be able to share my screen. I'm excited. I'm a techie. I love tech. So anything I can learn, it's been exciting.
Yeah, that's what I've enjoyed mostly about my classes because I've been teaching like spirit circles and development circles for 4 years now. And I've always done them in person. And the first one I did online was my clairs course. Like I did the four main clairs. I did this like a 4-week journey through the clairs. Each class was like an hour and a half, exercises. But I got to do a presentation. And even when I was in corporate, you were not getting me to do a PowerPoint. I would never do them, ever, ever, ever. And hitting up Canva for like a presentation, and then it's not like this talking head. I got so creative. It was such a cool way to kind of like, synthesize all the knowledge that I have and then just being able to like speak to it as a teacher at the time. It was so cool. It was so much fun. I was like, man, it's going to be hard if I choose to do like in-person stuff again, going back to the way it was, because it was like 2D versus 3D like experience. So I really enjoyed doing it online, and I'm doing way more stuff online now. And I
Yeah.
have 6 people waiting for readings in person, but I'm actually thinking about going fully online once I do those 6 that I had postponed because of COVID. Because it's like, I do things in my house and it's just added energy and pressure expended to, and I have 2 little kids, 3 and 6, getting my house ready, having people in my house. And it's quite an experience for me. And it's just so much better
Yeah. Yeah.
online.
I will say, as you were speaking, though, I will say that I think that some things translate really well online. I will say that yoga, because, I've been teaching a lot of yoga since the whole pandemic. Yoga is great online, and I'm so glad we have it, but nothing will take it in person. So I really truly miss having a class in front of me. I miss having the people in front of me and having the bodies in front of me. I'm so used to teaching and seeing their bodies and feeling their energy. And not that I can't feel it through the screen, but what happens in Zoom when you teach yoga is you have this screen and all little pictures and you're way back doing the yoga. So
Mhm.
I can't really see what they're doing. And I'm not going to single out and say, Danielle, move your shoulder or something like
Right.
that. So
Correction.
I'm craving that human connection. And it will be a long time because we won't be able to assist people. I can't actually do a hands-on, if I had to move people and stuff, but I'm missing my classes. I'm missing those physical classes that I miss. And I feel sad when I say it because it's been a long time and I'm ready for the studio to open and I'm ready to have classes. I don't know how that will work and when it will be. Hopefully mid-July. There'll be a lot of regulations and so forth, but that I'm ready for. And that I don't think, no matter how many classes and no matter how many Zoom and no matter how much YouTube for yoga, at least, I think you need a person there. It's good here and there, but I think that's the one thing that I don't think translates so good.
For
So
me, because I only did 2 events before COVID, my 2 large group reading events. And I mean, that was probably the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. And I am so glad I listened to my astrologer and just went and did them, because I got to enter COVID lockdown saying, okay, I did it. And I miss them. And so those are things that I'm going to definitely get back to in person and live is, this 30-person kind of like group reading events, because I'd never experienced energy like that in my life. And I'm just like craving it. Nothing compares to it. So I will definitely be doing more of those. And you do online ones. I haven't done an online one.
I've done, I've done small group in someone's home and connected with, a connection. And I haven't done like a dem. I haven't done what you've done. I haven't done like 30, 40 or 50 people, where not everybody got a reading, where I didn't go indirect. So it was just sort of open. I am inspiring to do that. So I've done group readings with other mediums and everyone's getting a reading. So they're getting like 7-8 minutes of reading. But my next step really is to do more of a demonstration. I would be entertained to do it on Zoom. and open it up where everybody, or double up, like double link or something. Maybe we should be doing that. Um,
No, we want to do an event together. We've
we're going
talked
to have
about
to do that. We did. But I love being, I, 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 I still always see myself sort of on stage in that physical presence of doing it. And I'm not talking like 100 people. I mean, I'm not saying no universe, but like it'd be nice to be in the energy of that, because even when I would do a small group and there was 5 or 6 people, I felt that energy and I loved it. So yeah, yeah, I'd like to do
You
that.
know, it was funny. I've never told this story, but for the first 6 years of my practice, I was one-on-one. That's it. I never did groups, never did. Well, 2 times I had somebody surprise me and bring in a second person. So there's like 2 people. But that only happened twice in 6 years. And about a week before, if your audience knows Soul Shine Astrology, like Natalie, she's an amazing astrologer. And I got one of her last one-on-one readings. And like 2 days before the reading, I had this dream, and I don't dream very much, but I was like 50. I had short hair again. And I was standing on a stage in front of people, and all I could see was behind me with these lights. I remember waking up saying, Spirit, you got the wrong girl. I'm like, I get stage fright. I am terrified. That will never be me. And then 2 days later, I had my astrology reading with Natalie, and everything on my chart indicates me working in large groups and large audiences. I was like, well, that's funny because I am known to do one-on-one. Right? That's all I ever do is one-on-one, other than my little development circles, which I never accepted more than 8 at once, because I do get stage fright. And she was the one who said, well, you just have to do it scared. So she picked for me the full moon in Leo, which was February 5th or 8th. And she's like, do it full moon in Leo, sign it up. And I opened up the event and it sold out in one day. I was like, okay, we're doing this. And that was the scariest thing I've ever done. And so I keep thinking about that vision, because I don't have a desire to be famous. Like, I don't want a TV show. I'm a very personal person, and I'm very introverted, actually. So I like being alone every opportunity I can get. And so it was kind of fascinating that all kind of happened at once. And then now all my work is almost group stuff. It's fascinating how quickly that shift happens when you realize it's in you. You're like, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think, it's always, I don't know, it's such an evolution. I love the healing process, but yeah. So do you want to share a little bit, before, I know we've been chatting a bit, but do you want to share a little bit about your mentorship and your programs, and just kind of like let everybody know, because you'll have my listeners and it's going to be so cool. I love this idea of, being on yours and being on mine at the same time and having like the same, it's such a good idea. I love this
It is.
idea.
I love it. We should do
Yeah.
this more regularly.
Yes, we got to do it more
And then
often, like on a regular.
I think so too. And I have a couple of questions from my Facebook group too for you. So I'll quickly talk about that. And I'm going to do this episode on my podcast called like the first 100 days of full-time spiritual entrepreneurship, because I've been kind of like documenting everything, my mindset, the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, because I came from being salaried since I was 17 to having to make my own income. And it's been a phenomenal experience for me, highs and lows. And so I started developing these programs. This kind of started with the Claire's course. I just had this idea, and I said, okay, who wants to learn about the Claire's, the language of spirit? And this is kind of what I've always been known to teach, is the finer details. I'm a Virgo sun, so I get really detailed about how I receive spirit's information and how I relay it through the language of spirit. So I ended up having over 40 people sign up within a day for that program. And it was live at the time. And then I've translated that course into what is now known as Spirit School. So it's myspiritschool.com. You can purchase the course. It's like, over 7 hours of live teaching with over 20 exercises on how to kind of like build these intuitive muscles. It's really aimed at getting you confident and clear and connected with your own spirit's language, because it's different for everybody. I've had phenomenal feedback from people who have taken that course. So my Spirit School has that course, also has my moon course, which is Live Your Life by the Magic of the Moon. And then just like a little PDF with video on your most intuitive week, kind of tracking your intuition throughout the week. And it's really aimed to show you and prove to you, like, yeah, you are intuitive. A lot of people question that. And it's so funny to me that people question that. And then so Spirit School was actually what I would consider to be the flop of my career so far, because I put so much effort to it. I actually got a women's entrepreneur grant to launch it because it's quite expensive to create an online school. But when I built it, people did not come. But I get like sales here or there, but I'm really kind of seeing now that people really want the live aspect of the teachings, which I always listen to the people I serve. So a few weeks ago, I launched what's called the initiation, and it's a 6-week mediumship and spiritual entrepreneurship journey. So it's 3 live classes, it's 2 one-on-one coaching calls, it's 3 group coaching calls, and a spirit circle every week. It's like mediumship development boot camp. And then there's an aspect at the end, because I don't want people, what I was never taught and where I feel like people have a lot of questions about is like, okay, so how do I get clients? How do I get people to sit in front of me? How do I price this? How do I market myself? And in a spiritual way, in a way that's totally in line with your integrity. And, because we have a lot of guilt being spiritual workers on pricing ourselves and advertising ourselves. And that's a wound that just needs to be healed. So there'll be an aspect of the course for that. So that's full. It's sold out in 4 days. And I will be launching again in October. So I'm going to end up launching that program twice a year. So if you want to get on the wait list for that, you can go to Squamish Medium on Instagram. There's a link in my bio to get on the wait list for the initiation, fall 2020. And other than that, I'm just doing readings and mentorship. I have a 3-month mentorship program. I'm booked until August, and I don't even have August up yet because I can't think that far ahead.
Wow.
So it's been pretty phenomenal. It's like the second I opened up my doors and told the world, okay, I'm doing this full time, like I have just like booked out like crazy and getting mentorship clients all the time for the 3-month mentorship program, which is 6 one-on-ones over 3 months, and then 24/7 Voxer access to me for the stuff that comes up in between, with a little bit of an intuitive astrology session in there as well. So it's been fun. I've received some pretty like cool clients that are professional, have like books, one even had like a t-shirt. Like, it's crazy, the people who are attracted to work with me, because what people like about the way I teach is that I teach very vulnerably. I talk about the stuff many people are not talking about, the insecurities that come up, the I'm not enoughness, the bad readings, the doubt. And so because I talk openly about my journey through all that, I have this like caliber of people who are attracted to work with me, because I get down to the dirty stuff that no one wants to talk about, right?
Yep. Yep. Well, you're down to earth. And I think that's why you and I connected so well when we met, because we can be in the woo and be in the woo, but we're really, I'm a Capricorn. So I'm very earthy, very goal. Like,
Virgo,
yeah,
earthy.
exactly. So, and so I can, I relate. And I think that's the biggest feedback I get from my students is that I'm relatable. Right. And I have my ups and downs, and I'm not going to tell you everything's perfect and glamorous. And, I know it all, because Lord knows I don't. And so I'm always learning. And I think that's always the thing. I'm always going to be learning something. I'm always picking up another book. Like my poor bookshelf. It's like, can I just read something else that's like a fantasy? It's like everything in there is like Reiki and energy and, mediumship, or I don't know, all those things, but I love them. So I love that. So when someone's like, don't you want to read a romance novel? I'm like, no, why would I
Yeah,
want to
because
read
we're not
that?
surface people, right? Surface
Yeah.
doesn't get us. We need deeper, meaningful.
So true. So true. I love it. I love it. And so, I'll put all your information in my show notes, and this way
Yeah.
your website, your Instagram link, the podcast link, and all that. So that'd be awesome.
And I want to know more about you for the Spirit School listeners too. I've had you on
Yeah.
before and people loved our episode together.
Thank you.
So I would love to know more too for the Spirit School listeners, like how you show up in the world, how you serve the world of spirit. And one of the questions in relation to that I received on the Facebook group page for Spirit School was, how do you like message all these offerings? How do you balance them? Like, I know for me, scheduling, even in person, online, mediumship readings, like I feel like a scientist half the time. So like, what does this look like for you? Somebody who's been doing it
Yeah.
longer than.
It seems it's so easy for me. It's so easy. I know this. I wish I had this like really amazing answer, but it's so easy for me. I think because I started out in the yoga world, and I used to teach 14 yoga classes a week.
Oh my
And I used to
God.
drive, 14 classes a week, and drive to 5 different studios, and then rent space for Reiki and readings, and then do like all this stuff. But I love to be, I love to be busy, but not busy to be busy. You know, like I love doing different things. I think this is the other thing. It's going to go back to yoga for a second. So when I was teaching yoga, there was a certain lineages that you could take. So if I studied this person or this person, I had to stay in that line. And I don't like lines.
Mm.
So but I am a rule follower. So I'm not a rule breaker, but if someone said you can only teach this kind of yoga for the rest of your life, it was like, so I teach vinyasa and I teach alignment, and I'm a smorgasbord of yoga person. And that's not really always the case in yoga. Usually you take Ashtanga, you take a Iyengar, you know, that kind of thing. And so that's been my life. I was a dancer. I'm creative that way in the physical body. And so that's sort of how my path has been. I know that there's a structure. So non-pandemic days, I teach Monday night, Tuesday, and Saturday. That's the yoga. And then my office hours were Tuesday and Thursday. You know, but now I just shifted a little bit. So I think it's like this is my analogy. When I do a reading, first of all, I never go up to anybody and give information. I disagree with all of that. So when I'm going to show up for spirit, I work for spirit, I say the same thing you do. I put on my spirit hat. You know, I call it my imaginary spirit hat. Or I love putting the sign out and say, you know, spirit is here, you know, readers here, readers in.
Mm-hmm.
That's like my sign in my head. Um, and then I show up for spirit and I work with spirit. So it's the same way. So whatever I'm doing, if it's yoga, I show up for spirit in that way. If I'm reading, I show up with spirit. I work with spirit there. If it's Reiki, I work with the energy and show up with spirit and work with spirit there. So it's making the conscious effort to show up in the situations that I can. Now I have learned the hard way that I can't overdo anything. So I
Mm.
don't like to see, this is virtually or in person, I don't like to see more than 4 Reiki clients a day. That's a lot for me. So if I'm seeing 4 Reiki clients a day, you know, that could be with a reading or without a reading. So I have my limit, and I've only learned that the hard way. But I think it's just like reading. I prepare to do a reading, I work with spirit, I show up with spirit, and when it's over, I move on. I go to the next thing. I go to the next thing. And that's how I do it. So like last week I had three readings in a week and a Reiki session and 4 yoga classes and who knows what else. This week I had 1 reading
Mm.
and 1 Reiki and 2 Reiki sessions and 4 yoga classes. And that's great. So it's okay. Like spirit will give me what I need. And I know it's nothing fancy, but that's the answer.
Yeah, I set my schedule up like I only work because I left corporate so that I don't have to work that hard anymore ever again. And so like I have my day set up where I do 3 days of sessions. The first session of the day is always a reading, and then the other 2 are mentorship. Just because more people want mentorship from me than reading. So I just have it set up between that balance. And it's worked out pretty good. Once in a while, Spirit will just say, just do 2 that day. And it's funny because every time that happens, something will come up the week before that. Somebody has to reschedule or I have to reschedule, and then I have that space. So I'm rarely exceeding that 3 sessions a day. Yeah, because I just want more time to do
Mhm.
other stuff.
Yeah.
Go
And you know
have
what? Like, it's a beautiful Friday here in New York, and the sun is shining, and we can finally eat outside restaurants. That's like huge.
Mhm.
So I might take a drive to the beach. I'm only 25, 30 minutes from the beach. So this gives me the opportunity, especially I'm kind of enjoying this understanding of where we are and kind of transitioning into, you know, the pandemic and changing all these things. So I'm really grateful for that. And so it's shown me a lot too that, you know, how I work and how I want to work. I used to be the person, even entrepreneurial. It was like, if someone was like, I want a reading, I'd be like, okay, I need to see you for Reiki. I need to see you for Reiki. I need to see you for reading. I'd be like, okay, tonight at 7:00. Can I see you tonight at 7:00? I was like, yes, because I wasn't really doing anything. Because I said in my mind, I wasn't really doing anything at 7:00. So I might as well see them. But it
Mhm.
was that dollar for hour mentality. And I stopped that a while ago because it was burning me out. And I wasn't I need to turn off. I need to turn off. I can't be that person all the time. So you learn the hard way, but yeah. So
Yeah, no, that's
yeah.
something like I've always been really boundaried with. It's like, here's my schedule. The people who are literally drawn to get those readings will get them. right? And I just trust that kind of like divine planning and that divine alignment.
Yeah.
But I don't get very many messages like that, but maybe just energetically, people just know I'm not open to it.
Yeah, I get a lot. You know what I think with Reiki sometimes it can feel matter of fact, there's a lot of mm, how do I put it? Like a need, or like they know that I'm not doing it. They understand that. But especially with this, there's been a lot of anxiety, there's been a lot of depression, and it's like, "Oh my, when are you going to open up?" And I'm like, "It's okay." Like, so there's like this, it's like an urgency. And I have a lot of people that have urgency, especially in that arena, because it helps them and it soothes them, but it's like a pacifier. So now that we've been in the pandemic, they haven't been the ones that have wanted to do distant healing. They just haven't connected, because they have such high levels of anxiety, which I understand. I'm like, it's okay. We're going to go back. Don't worry. And they're learning their own course, kind of doing what they need to do. But yeah, so I do sometimes get these messages and I don't respond now. I used to have to I would respond, like, I'd be sitting on the couch with my husband or my kids and I'm like, "Oh no, it's okay. Okay, just breathe through it. You'll be
Mhm.
okay. I'll see you tomorrow." I'm like, "What am I doing?" Like, that's not right. So anyway, you learn
Yeah,
that
no,
way.
that's good for people to know because everyone who's drawn to be a light worker will have to overcome their own people pleasing journey because we step into this work because we want to help. And we think that we'll be struck with lightning if we decide not to help in that moment. And that's just something we all have to get over in our own way. My people pleasing that made me sick was not so much that, it was around if the person didn't have an amazing experience, I beat myself up for a long time. And most of the time, I was perceiving that they didn't have a good experience. And then they ended up rebooking. I'm like, oh, you liked it. Man, I just like spent 6 months ruminating that I bombed this session. And so I had to get over the fear of and being way too attached to the outcome of the sitter's experience. That was my people pleasing. And it did make me sick and it made me um, and I mean physically ill because I'm so clairsentient. I wear my anxiety through headaches, through
Mm,
heart palpitations, through nausea. And I just had to kind of let it go and just say, I did the best I could today. I hope I made you proud, spirit.
yeah, yeah.
And
I
that's
think what saves me with the Reiki energy is that I don't consider myself as clairsentient. So I don't, because a lot of people are like, oh, I do Reiki, which there's another whole thing to go with that. Like, I don't. People come to me like, I have an entity, I have this. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is not the movies, and this is not your ghost and your entity, and you don't have attachments. So,
yeah.
like, that's another whole topic we can go to because people are like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, it's not real. And they're like, but it is because my spiritual teacher told me I have an entity in a black. I'm like, oh gosh, like that is dark, dark energy that you're just, if you want to see it, you'll see it. So if you choose to see that, you'll keep seeing that. But if you
Mm.
choose to see this, you'll keep seeing, anyway, don't get me going on that. Um,
It's a whole other topic
a
we
whole other
should
topic
get on.
about ghosts and entities and connections and energies and all these weird things that they want me to take away. Yeah, it's like I'm not. No, that doesn't work like that. But what was I saying now? I was saying something
Whoa.
about Reiki and uh
Attachments, like attaching
oh
to the outcome of the
yeah.
sitter.
Oh, the attachment, the atman. So for me, because I'm not clairsentient, as I don't think it's highly clairsentient, that's why with Reiki, I don't feel everyone's pain. I don't feel, because I think if that was my highest clair or my whatever, how you want to say it, I don't think I could do this work. So I have a boundary with that very clearly. But I too, as a Capricorn and a people pleaser, I'm always like, was that a good reading? I'm harder on myself with the readings than I
Mhm.
am with the Reiki. The Reiki, I'm like, I know this works, universal energy. I'm just the conduit. Thank you. And I have to get there a little bit for the reading. I do beat myself up a little bit, but I don't know who said this. You'll probably know. A very, one of the spiritual teacher and medium. You don't become a bad you don't become a bad reader between readings. Like, you know what I mean? No matter how many readings you do, you don't become a bad reader just between readings. Like you're still reading, and you're going to have good and you're going to some bad. And you know what? Some of them are going to suck and some are going to be great. So it's life. So
It's so funny. And I love that. I love that. And, I had to learn to not ruminate. And I tell my students too, I say, okay, now you did the reading. You're ego and your logical mind will find every way to turn this into a shitty reading. So you need to give yourself a timeline. I say you will think about this reading for 30 minutes and then you will forget about it and move on.
Love
And so
that.
that's kind of what I had to teach myself. I'd be like, Danielle, you get 1 hour, and then you move on to something that brings you joy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so I've had to really put boundaries and discipline around myself around that, because we know how the mind works. We know how controlling the mind wants to be, and we get to choose how we carry ourselves from that moment on. So I've just
Yeah.
kind of like been consciously trying to make these choices that shift me out of that super low vibe, weird place. But I do think too, and I don't know if you feel like this, like I feel like with mediumship in particular, there's a lot of pressure on mediumship because it's so exposed now, and because there's so many amazing TV shows with amazing mediums who do amazing work. And then there's like this expectation, whether people believe it or not, but there is an expectation that comes into mediumship readings that's not there for other types of readings.
I absolutely agree. I really do. I think when I started to actually say I was a medium, because it was like under closed, I was doing readings for a long time, and spirit was coming through, deceased loved one was coming through, but I would never like say I was a medium. Once I claimed that, and I claimed, because it was happening more and more, I said, okay, spirit, I work for spirit. Just like I kind of like had that same feeling with the Reiki energy. Then I was like, oh, it's a responsibility. So I feel like there is a responsibility, especially, people are grieving and they want the particular person. And then you'll see, Tyler Henry and, Lisa Williams, and I'm naming all these people. And, who did I just see the new one? John Thomas. He has a new show. And I'm like, oh, he's
Thomas
driving
John,
Thomas John. Sorry. Did you see that
the
one, by the
seatbelt
way?
psychic.
Oh my gosh, I'm watching it on CBS, like downloading. I'm like, he drives people around in the car.
Yeah, it's
It's
called the
really,
seatbelt psychic.
that's it. It was, and I'm like, oh my God, he's so good. Ah, right. But I love all that. Like, I think you and I have that. Like, I do love watching that, but
Me
then
too.
that's what, people, and I'm like, how do you get that? How do you get the name? And I'm like, names aren't hard. I just made them hard. Right. So it's all of that. So yes, I do think there is a level of responsibility, but I think it's also my lesson and the journey to understand. And like, I love what you said, give yourself an hour, or give yourself whatever time and say, okay, now you need to move on. I'm going to use that, because sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm like, that was great. Okay. And I go on. Other days I'm like, did she really like it? I'm not, she really liked it. It's like the mean girls talking to me.
Yeah.
So
And you know what's funny? Because we have like a lot of these spiritual philosophies out there, like you can't rely on external validation to, to validate you. But the truth of the matter is, a mediumship, it is all about validation.
yep.
It's like, do you understand this?
Evidential. Give me the evidential. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's hard to like turn that off, because it is the, post reading email or the review that you get that makes like, okay, I made an impact in this person's life. Like, I was a clear channel for spirit this day, and they felt that impact. And most often than not, we never hear from people
Yeah.
again, right? And
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
find that the next time they come a year or two later, it's because they feel like I'm too busy, or they don't want to bother me. But I'm like, no, it actually feels really good to
Yeah.
know that, you made a difference in someone's life, because that's why we're kind of doing this,
Yeah,
right?
I will share just quickly. So, my daughter has had a couple readings from different people, and just this past week, she's like, "Mom, I want a reading. Mom, I want a reading. I know you can't give me one." So I was like, "Okay, what?" And she didn't want mediumship. She wanted strictly psychics, like strictly intuitive. Like that's what she wanted. So I said, "Okay." So she found this person, and I kind of knew her and my niece, whatever. So I said, okay, I'm going to give you some good sitter rules. And she's like, what's a sitter? I'm like, you're a sitter. I said, so you're going to open your mind and you're going to listen to whatever ever she says. And I said, and I know you want intuitive. I said, but this is your guidance, and, try to let the person speak, don't like cut them off. And I said, but just be open. I said, and if a name comes through, and if it's not grandma, or if it's not, and she didn't really want necessary mediumship. And she said, okay. So she came down and afterwards, and she's like, it was really good. It was really good. And I did what you said. And she goes, a lot of times I was cutting her off, but I don't think I should cut her off. And she just said, I liked her energy. So
Hmm.
she goes, and I feel good. I said, you know what? That's what it is. It's not, you're not going to remember the whole thing. And I don't know if she recorded it or not. I don't know if you're going to remember the whole thing, but how you felt and that
Hmm.
you liked this person and there was a synergy there. Um, that's the healing. And so I always know that readings are healings. they're not just giving message, they're not just translation, they're healing. And if I keep reminding myself of that, that really helps me too. So it's interesting, but yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I've actually never heard it put like that, Tina. I do talk about Maya Angelou's quote, people won't remember what you said or what you did, they'll remember how you made them feel. And that reminds me of that. And you're 100% right.
That's why
That's a
people
good
keep coming back to you, because I think at the end of the day, people want to feel that. And if they like you, and they feel that, it's not, yes, they want to hear what they want to hear to some degree, but it's more of who you are. And I call it the likable factor.
mm,
Did you ever hear me say this? So
mm,
everybody to me has a likable factor. Some people have a likable factor and some people don't. And if you have a likable factor and people like you can really say anything. Like, I'm not saying we're not, but once you have that, like, you have the likable factor. Like, you have a presence that you attract people, and people feel safe, and people feel good, and people feel like they can open up.
mm.
And so people like you. And so you may not give them exactly the right name, or you might give them exactly what they want, but because they feel that energy, they're getting a healing, and they'll keep coming back. And I really believe that some people have it and some people don't. And that's just the way it goes.
I
That's
love
my
that.
that's my
Well, it's
thing.
one of the nicest compliments I've ever
Oh my
received. Thank
gosh.
you.
Well, I think we should wrap this up, girl, because we could
Yeah,
talk
no, I'm
forever, which I love.
I'm going to my first restaurant since
Oh,
COVID. I'm meeting my
oh my
friend for.
gosh, please enjoy. Have a great time. I'm hoping I get to go soon too. So I miss
Well,
you. I
I
want to see you
love
in person one day.
I know we will. We'll schedule
Yeah.
a retreat down in Cali, maybe Mount Shasta or something cool.
We'll do like a huge event and like lights and everything.
Totally.
It's so
Well,
funny.
for the Spirit School listeners, you got to go check out Tina on the Intuitive Woman podcast and her Instagram, The Intuitive Woman. She is a light and a force, and she's from New York. I'm like, you got to love the
Oh my
accent.
gosh. Oh my gosh. And everybody out there in the Intuitive Woman listeners, thank you so much. Please go check out Spirit School podcast. Go check out Danielle, Squamish Medium on Instagram. Instagram is her jam. Do not miss her stories and all that she has to offer. And thank you so much, Danielle. This has been so much fun. Let's do it again.
Awesome. Yes.
Bye, my friend.
Bye.